The night is dark and full of fear. Ghoul Realm invites you to a realm where the line between humans and monsters is blurred. Get ready to face your fears as we tell the harrowing story of Kim Taehyung, who finds himself trapped in the clutches of an unforgiving forest and its terrifying inhabitants. This is EP6-END of Ghoul Realm. Thank you for your subscription and likes. I hope you can leave your thoughts in the comments section. 35 Sweet Home? The room was silent, so silent that he can even hear his own breathing. The soft pillow beneath his head felt very warm, just like the blanket over his body that was wrapped very carefully. But suddenly, everything started to fade away. The softness of the pillow and blanket turns out to be cold and rough, and the sweet, flower-like smell of the room turned into a bad odor that was quite suffocating. There was a sound, the sound of something rolling on the wooden floor. Some growling and gurgling were still evident in the distance, but he was trying his best to see the thing on the floor. The darkness started to turn into a bit of light when he focused on the floor, only to fall back in utter horror. That was the cut-off head of someone, blood still leaking from the half-neck and painting the dirty floor in crimson. A very disgusting sight to witness after all. He wanted to scream, shout for help, but nothing came out of his seemed-to-be numb tongue. His body stood like a pillar that was about to demolish in an instant, but his heart was just about to explode with terror. The door of the cabin opened to show a person peeking inside with a wide smile and sparkly eyes. His steps were calm and collected as he reached forward with the same smile before bending down and taking hold of the head. Such a waste of food. Muttering that in a disappointing tone, he opened his mouth, teeth baring widely as he bites into the flesh of the neck, only to suck loudly on the leaking blood. And no. Stop. His frozen tongue finally let him speak a few words, but the person in front of him just gawked with a mischievous glint before biting again, only to cut off the ear. Stop. Hey, baby. Baby, open your eyes. The voice made him jolt up from the bed, his breathing ragged to the extent to hurt his chest and head. The sight was still hazy when two hands tried to cup his face, only to get slapped. Okay, I'm not touching you, but calm down. Yeah. The voice, the same voice. Taking a great effort to move his eyes up, he pushed the other harshly before scooting away from him, his body trembling terribly as he opened and closed his mouth to take some oxygen. Love, please. That's nothing. You are safe. See, you are at home, our room. Hearing that, his eyes widened slightly. It was not the cabin. Not that dirty small wooden place that was filled with odd smells and horrible memories. Rather, it was really a room, a spacious and clean room, filled with a sweet aroma. See, you are with me, sweetheart, and we are safe. Taehyung frowned, his face contorted in great confusion as he slowly calmed enough to actually look around. Where am I? The person in front of him softly sighed as he took a seat beside him at some distance. Your dream place, love. Remember, you asked me to build a house in the forest on our first anniversary? We are at our home, our sweet home. It was like a brick hit him hard on his head and everything went blank. Home. Forest. Moving his gaze away from the surroundings, he focused on the person who had silver hair but shorter with an undercut, a silver piercing decorating his lower lip, and loop earrings hanging perfectly on both ears. Jungkook. The said person smiled sweetly, a hand softly reaching to cup his face, and in a daze, he couldn't push again, letting the warm hand caress his skin that felt cold under the warm palm. Yes, love, you're Jungkook. Mine, Jungkook? What's happening? He is again playing with my mind. Stay away. Stop playing with me. You let them eat him. He died in front of me. Yanking away the hand harshly, he tugged his own hair, mind playing the horrifying scenes on repeat. Jungkook frowned, quickly scooting closer to the other, who kept on mumbling things with wide-blown eyes. Tae, baby, my sweetheart, what are you talking about? Taehyung shook his head in disbelief. The audacity? The older still has the audacity to talk like he did nothing? Ha, you are impossible. Even after killing lots of people, you're still acting innocent. Jungkook sighed, eyes glistening when Taehyung pushed him with great force before getting up and rushing to the door of the room. Don't fall for his tricks anymore, Taehyung. Don't you dare. The footsteps behind him were loud and clear as he opened the door to come across a large hallway, expensive decor and lots of furniture. Love, slow down. Please. Avoiding the sickeningly sweet voice and words, Taehyung kept on rushing to the hallway till he finally reached the main door of the house, which should be called a mansion. Baby, please. Talk to me, tell me what happened to you. You were fine 2 days ago. I regret leaving you alone. Hearing that, Taehyung halted in the middle of the broad hallway. 2 days. Jungkook followed him quickly and nodded his head frantically, face full of distress. Don't you remember? I went on a business trip 2 days ago because you pushed me to do so. You were burning in fever and I wasn't ready to leave. Taehyung scoffed. Oh really? And then? Okay, this was getting on his nerves now. If that was a nightmare, it was a bit better than the other one, but still, he just wanted to be free of it all. Jungkook licked his own lips and softly grabbed his shoulders, guiding him toward the nearby couch. You fell from the stairs in high fever and dash. Taehyung's eyes widened in pure shock when the other continued blabbering. Love, you just woke up fully after that. I'm so sorry for leaving you. Believe me, I really regret leaving that day. The other kept on saying, sobbing with every word when he just kept standing there with blank eyes. My heart was hurting so bad. You can't even imagine when I get to know that you fell this hard. I came back as soon as possible, but you were sleeping for so long. But my love, he made Taehyung sit on the couch and softly peck his forehead that he couldn't feel. Everything is fine now, I won't leave you. Promise. The words sound like a real promise and Taehyung felt immense dread. Pushing the other back, he lashed out. Jungkook, stop this instant. Taehyung spat it harshly, but the other fell on his knees, shaking his head continuously. I'm not going, I promise, love. But don't hurt yourself anymore. Taehyung frowned, not understanding what was happening because his mind was too clouded. Rubbing his fingers on his temple, he realized that his forehead was wrapped in a bandage. Pushing the other once again, he rushed to the full-length mirror nearby to gasp in another surprise. This wasn't Taehyung he remembered to see last time, that's not him. His silver hairs weren't there anymore, instead brown mixed with black was showing, length normal with slightly larger bangs. His forehead was bandaged and there was no mark on his neck. His fury-filled eyes turned to the silver-haired who came to him with teary eyes and tried to smile. It will be over soon, Tae. You just need to take your medicines and it will be fine. What medicines? I'm not on medication. Jungkook didn't hear him before picking him up and taking him to the room. He woke up. Avoiding the protest and thrashing of the younger, he placed him back on the bed before rushing to get a glass of water and some medicines. Taehyung watched in horror when Jungkook came back with them. Here, take them and you will be fine. Dr. Soo is already on his way. Stop your bullsh *T. Jungkook just bit his lips when Taehyung again pushed him. Even the glass shattered on the marble floor, breaking into millions of pieces. Jungkook just nodded. A few tears left his eyes at the movement, but Taehyung was too confused to feel anything. His shaky pupils met with another door in the room, and marching to that, he discovered that as a bathroom too, and another door lead him to a closet, full of many clothes. We were in a forest in a cabin. He turned to see the other standing near the bed with sadness written on his face. Then how am I here? Taehyung's voice boomed into the whole room, and probably in the whole mansion, but Jungkook just bit his lips, letting him do whatever he wanted. You let those puppets of yours kill them, him. That hybrid, that dash. His brows furrowed in great displeasure when he couldn't recall the name of either. Baby Dash, no, that was. I knew him, but why can't I remember exactly what happened? The confusion-filled face was soon getting pale when he slowly felt that everything was slipping away from his mind, like it was not real. Like it was all a nightmare. Finding the younger's face losing its color, Jungkook was on alert, and just as he reached there, Taehyung harshly tugged his own hairs in frustration. What's happening to me? Why can't I remember? But it feels real. That was real. You. Love, hey baby, please. You need to calm down. You will get sick again, please. Calm down. Jay, come here quickly. The said person came running to find the two near the closet and brunette in worse condition. Oh no, another attack? Jay breathed out in panic before rushing to grab a syringe from the drawer and filling it up with a liquid and rushing to give it to the older male. Sir, here. Jungkook took it immediately, but when Taehyung saw that, he again pushed the older before rushing out of the room. His head was hurting so bad. His mind was clouded so badly, and his heart was hurting in the worst way possible. Baby, Avoiding that voice, he rushed to the main door once again and opened that only to find a person standing there with a small medical bag in their hand. Oh, Taehyung? But Taehyung was in great confusion because the person in front of him again looked familiar, so familiar, and when his mind clicked a bit, he stumbled back in utter horror. Eyes wide, mouth dry, and heart beating uncontrollably. EU. The girl in front of him smiled and entered the house only to be greeted by Jungkook. Oh dear. Sue, please help. He's again suffering from that. This time he is telling a different story, a cabin killing something. Please do something, he is getting pale. Taehyung was still busy trying to remember the face of the girl in front of him, and when he remembered clearly, he almost let out a shriek. The girl was none other than the one he met in the forest, the one who was torn apart in front of his eyes, the same girl Jungkook shot in leg. That rowdy girl. 36. Memory/night. Yes, me. Taehyung, sure. She smiled, making the already confused boy more bewildered. He clearly remembered the scenes of seeing her in pieces, that gruesome sight, how can he forget? But wasn't that a nightmare? Everything was just getting jumbled up and playing with his sanity. No, you died. Jungkook was already on his way to take hold of the boy who was about to collapse, this time with utmost disbelief. Baby, what are you talking about? She is your doctor, MS. Soo Minha, you're under treatment and she is the in charge. Shaking his head, Taehyung pushed back the older weakly, but his weak attempt was useless as he actually felt his knees lose strength when the girl softly touched his forehead. There is no fever, but he is trapped again. Get him to the room, Mr. John. John? The shaky pupils met with the warm ones. John? Jungkook bit his lips and carried him up carefully before walking back to the same room. Love, you're scaring me a lot this time. That's me, and soon you will be a John as well. Han Jungkook. Adopted son of Dr. Han. Another flash made him shudder. Another chunk of his memory or nightmare. He couldn't decide yet. Seeing the brunette heavily in a daze, Jungkook gestured to the doctor to start her work. She gently took a seat beside the dazed brunette before taking out a small torch from her medical bag. Taehyung, sure. What did you see this time? Can you tell me in detail, please? Taehyung once again shuddered at the voice, same gaze but a bit softer. How can I remember that in so much detail and forgot the rest? By love? Breaking his trance, he looked up to find a very worried Jungkook standing with fists clenching. I saw you dying, your blood. It was everywhere. They ate you and dish. Once again it felt like his memory just stopped working suddenly. Taking hold of his head, he let out a loud breath. Baby, calm down and drink some water here. Open your mouth, love. He didn't know, but deep down it was like some sort of restraints were pulling him away from all of them. Silently watching the older carrying the glass in front of him, he just stared to the side to find a new face. A boy in his mid-20s maybe. Noticing the gaze, Jungkook quickly introduced the male to him. He is Jay, baby. Our servant, the one you hired last month when we shifted here. The little, very little piece that was about to embrace him, again left him in great havoc. Now, when he tried to recall more about whatever was bothering him, he couldn't recall it except for two names. Jin Hyung, Jimin. Where are they? Jungkook frowned. His expression morphed into another wave of confusion and sadness as he placed the glass on the side table before getting a seat on the other side of the brunette and taking hold of his trembling hands. Love! He licked his lips. Eyes again getting teary, but he gulped thickly before continuing, just making Taehyung lean back like a dead body. Who are they? Taehyung let out a peal of dry laughter. A laughter that soon turned into a sob when he started pulling his hair. It was really too much to understand. 1 second he recalled something, and the memory was proved wrong by the people in front of him. If he tried to recall something more, nothing much could be clear, leaving him in a blurry world. Jungkook clenched his jaw and tried to embrace the other, who was now sobbing and pulling his hair like a crazy lad, but got pushed away. Stay away. What did you do with me? I can't remember. My mind is like a whirlpool right now. What's wrong with me? Dear. Sue quickly opened her bag again and filled a syringe in a great hurry as Jungkook tried to control the younger, who was now thrashing and trying to run away. Mr. John, grab him tightly. Jungkook nodded, avoiding the protest, and pushing the brunette did until Dr. Sue finally succeeded in injecting the content inside Taehyung's arm. It didn't take long before Taehyung was feeling like his body was so heavy and his mind so lighter. His teary eyes met with Jungkook's teary ones. The older pecked his head many times as he was placed gently back on the bed, a blanket covering him. "Rest a bit, love. I'm here for you. I'll stay here for you, just for you." Hearing those fading words, Taehyung's mind finally found some peace as he involuntarily closed his eyes as soothing words continued with the soft caresses on his scalp. The soft breeze was blowing his hair gently as he kept on watching the slightly distant trees. The rustling of leaves was so clear in the air. The whole area was filled with greenery, a whole forest at some distance, and the rest of the ground was decorated with lush green grasses of various types. His face was stoic, his heart was empty, mind still trying to unfold the knots. "Sir, Mr. John is back and is asking for you." "Jay," the servant politely said and smiled, but Taehyung couldn't respond to that. Jay looked kinda embarrassed but again smiled and stepped forward, standing a bit closer to the dazed brunette. "Sir Dash, can you tell me one thing?" Taehyung asked instead, causing the other to panic for a second before nodding his head enthusiastically. "Sure, ask anything, sir." Taehyung turned his face to see the other's face gleaming with excitement and doe eyes looking so innocent. "When did I come here?" "Last month you shifted here with Mr. John and I was called a day before for cleaning the place." Taehyung kept his face stoic, watching as the other continued. "This mansion was newly built but needed some settings, so Mr. John called me earlier, but you were the one who selected me from our company." "I don't remember at all." Jay bowed his head lightly. "Don't worry, you will be fine soon, sir. Mr. John is taking great care of your health. He really cried the whole night when he came back and found you injured." "I am not sick." Being irritated by hearing the same thing again and again made him spit in annoyance, but Jay nodded his head. Before he could say anything else, another voice interrupted him. Taehyung felt a bit stiff but kept his calm demeanor. "You can go back, Jay." The servant followed the words and silently left. The soft steps reached closer and Taehyung felt his heartbeat increasing slowly when his skin was fanned with warm breath near his nape. "Sweetheart, how are you feeling now?" Taehyung blinked, not moving an inch when two arms wrapped around his waist, one slowly caressing his clothed skin. Whatever happened the last night, he clearly remembered it all. He woke up around 12 p.m. as the clock showed, and fortunately, he was alone in the room. After getting a bit fresh as Jay came for his help, he had breakfast that comprises a few bites of pancakes the younger made for him. He took a little tour of the mansion to find a few pictures of Jungkook and himself, a phone that was claimed to be his own as Jay informed him. When he opened the gallery of his phone, he found not a single thing that he could recall. There were a few pictures of sceneries, a little selfies of Jungkook and him. Even the contacts had a few only, including Jungkook, Dr. Soo Jae, and a few more people that he doesn't remember. "What's wrong with me? Why can't I remember anything?" This time he asked softly, voice sounding tired. Jungkook seemed disturbed by the question as the grip around his waist tightened slightly and he started nuzzling. "Baby, you will be fine soon. Don't worry, Dash. Tell me." Heaving out a sigh, Jungkook softly mumbled, "Schizophrenia." Taehyung's face contorted in displeasure as he turned back harshly to give a glare to the other. "It started a few months ago. Dear. Sue suggested taking you somewhere peaceful because your episodes were getting intense. Then, you suddenly requested to build a house near the forest and we came here." Taehyung remained silent when Jungkook explained shortly. "If it's schizophrenia, then what about my memories? Why can't I remember my past?" Jungkook bit his lips very harshly and looked up with soft eyes. "Dear. Sue is confused about that too, but you are showing symptoms of dementia." Taehyung sighed, removing the arms of the other from his waist. He rubbed his hands together. "What about my family? Friends? You are an orphan, love, and an introvert. You can see your phone, there aren't many contacts." Taehyung clenched his fists, eyes again getting teary for an unknown reason. "How did you find me?" Jungkook sighed but smiled widely. "Our fate brought us together. I found you in Seoul on the bridge where you were standing alone. I couldn't resist your charms and tried my luck. You showed a bit of interest and that's how we ended up together." Nodding to that, Taehyung decided that it was enough for the time being. They had lunch together, a pretty decent and healthy one. But he was still not so used to the environment. Days started to pass on and slowly he started to believe in his recent life. Maybe whatever he had in some corner of his mind was really a nightmare or his hallucinations. Maybe he was really sick in mind to be in those horrific delusions. Maybe that was all just a nightmare created by his sick brain. But was it really? 37 Déjà vu. The loud noise made the sleepy brunette jolt up in surprise. His breathing was ragged because he was stuck in a small space in another nightmare he just had. His frantic eyes met with the source of noise to find the window open and the curtains waving. Taking some deep breaths to calm his mind, he got up to find himself alone on the bed. Well, in the past days, the silver-haired never left him alone if we deduct the few hours he went out because of his business. But finding himself alone on the bed at night, he felt a bit disappointed. Shaking his head, he got up, keeping the silk sleeping robe in place with one fist as the other hand was busy keeping his fringes away from his eyes. The dimly lit room was silent except for the loud voice from the outside. Reaching the open window, he looked out to find the deep night, darkness, and that specific smell in the air that indicates the wet mud. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath to take the nice and calm scent in his lungs, but suddenly he recalled a memory where this calming scent was mixed with a prickly smell of blood. The once softly lidded eyes opened up in distress on recalling another scattered flash from his nightmare. When will I be normal? Muttering to himself, he closed the window and went back to bed. Time passed on but Jungkook didn't come back, which made him wonder about the older. It felt like a déjà vu to his clouded mind, but he shrugged it off and went out of the room to find the hallway was dark just like the outside. Jungkook. He softly called the other but got no response. Jay? Even the servant was nowhere to be found. Where did they go? Frowning in displeasure, he checked every room to find them empty, like completely empty. He barely visited the mansion and the closed rooms, but now when he accidentally did, he found it weird. Unlike the hallway and the room he was sleeping in, those were without any sort of furniture or even lights. Closing the door again, he went to the couch in the hallway as he wasn't ready to sleep alone when the storm was wild outside. Leaning back on the couch, he recalled his conversation with Jungkook yesterday at lunch. I don't want to stay here. Taehyung broke the silence, to which Jungkook stopped his hand from moving any further. The small piece of potato fell back into the plate from his chopsticks. But why, love? You requested to come here. But I'm not liking the environment anymore. It continuously reminds me of the nightmare I lived in for so long. The open air suffocates me when I can't pinpoint everything clearly. Jungkook sighed and dragged his chair near the other to softly cup his cheek. Baby, it will be fine. You are doing better than before. Sooner you will adapt to it. This is better for your health. Taehyung removed the hand from his face and looked directly into the eyes of the older. Please, if you came here on my request, then I'm requesting you again. I don't want to live here. There is nothing to distract me except for a few books. I can't contact anyone. I really want to meet the people on my contact list, need to recall something about them. Please, Jungkook. His eyes were almost wet when he let out his point. Taking a brief moment to ponder on the request, the older finally nodded his head. Fine, but love, it's not possible on an emergency basis. I sold my property and soul to build this mansion, and also used the remaining amount to invest in my business. I can't, sorry baby, but I can't do it right now. Jungkook looked really apologetic and Taehyung felt a bit defeated. How much time would it take? About a few months? Taking that as a positive response, Taehyung resumed his lunch after a subtle nod that made the older softly smile and leave a sweet peck on his head that was now free of bandage. I am really starting to hate this place. Mumbling softly, he closed his eyes to rest them, but his ears perked up when he noticed a small voice from a distance. He got up and went to the window that was permanently locked, but can be used to look outside with some effort. A deep frown latched on his flawless face when he saw two silhouettes coming towards the mansion. He was about to panic but let out a sigh of relief when he identified the two. One was Jungkook and the other was Jae. But where were they at this hour? Suddenly, he felt the urge to hide and simply rushed back to his room, only to hear the soft creak of the main door after a little while. He could hear the hushed voices of the two but couldn't make the words. His phone showed the time as 4 a.m. and he was quite confused about the matter, but soon Jungkook entered the room. The first thing the other did was lean over the bed and leave a long kiss on his lips. Taehyung kept his eyes closed this whole time until the other parted back to go to the bathroom. After a few minutes, he was back and was cuddling the younger in his arms protectively, nuzzling his nose in the fluffy hairs. Maybe I'm still paranoid about things. He really loves me. Sighing, he let the other drag him back till their bodies were pressed together without any space and tried to sleep. But his eyes felt devoid of any need to sleep again. After a while, he felt the older was already out cold. Taking the chance, he turned his head to look up at the other's face up close. Every feature screamed perfection, but he don't know why he can't help his inner voice and stay away from the other. Just when he started to feel a bit drowsy and closed his eyes, another distant voice caught his attention, making him flinch slightly when the sound seemed to be very familiar. The sound, more precisely, the growls, increased after a while, only doubling with every passing second, and Taehyung felt his limbs shaking. But he controlled his movements when Jungkook slightly moved and frowned in his sleep. "Shut up." Taehyung was dumbfounded when Jungkook muttered, rather irritated in his sleep, and again dragged his body to nuzzle, but as the growls didn't stop, the latter took something out of his shirt with closed eyes and muttered the same words with more authority. But what caught Taehyung to be frozen was that something in between the fingers of the older. His body started to tremble again when his mind again showed a sense of familiarity with the object. The flashes came into his eyes, but he still couldn't pinpoint them clearly. During this all, Jungkook woke up due to heavy breathing and a trembling body. "Tae? Baby, what happened?" Taehyung blinked several times, not knowing what to say or do. He just embraced the older, who was taken aback but hugged him. "When did you wake up?" Taehyung took many deep breaths before answering. "A while ago." Jungkook hummed, softly caressing his scalp and massaging his neck as he stayed in the embrace. "Are you alright, baby?" Taehyung nodded his head, even though he wasn't. Jungkook looked not satisfied, so he got up and looked around to find water, but the water wasn't there. Cursing out a few words, he said the younger to calm down as he went out to take some water. Taehyung was now noticing only one thing. The growls of animals stopped, and it was once again peaceful. He watched as Jungkook came back with a glass of warm milk and handed it to him. "Here, drink some, it will help you sleep." Taehyung obediently took that and finished it. Jungkook was almost dozing off, but he stayed up till the younger fell asleep again. "Taehyung, mister. John told me that you had a nightmare yesterday night again. What did you see this time?" Taehyung remained silent, eyes scanning the doctor's arms that were covered fully. It's been more than a month, but he never saw her wearing something loose or short. The weather was kinda hot as it was midsummer, but still. "Taehyung? On the call?" He sighed and pointed his finger toward the arm of the doctor. "Aren't you itchy?" Dr. Sue frowned but quickly chuckled, waving her hand dismissively. "Of course not. I feel better this way." Taehyung again nodded his head, then again readied himself for all the questions that he answered, this time a bit tactically, yes or no, no details at all. Later that day, when Dr. Sue was finally gone after handing him a bunch of medicines with strict prescriptions to follow, especially at night, he got a new desire to stroll out of the mansion. Jungkook was out of the mansion and Jae was busy preparing for dinner, so he silently sneaked past the kitchen to go to the door, only to find it locked. Even after trying a few times, he couldn't open that and was sure that it was locked with a key. The rattling sound brought Jae out of the kitchen, who was bewildered to see the brunette struggling with the door. "Sir, what are you doing?" Taehyung turned back and pointed towards the locked door with raised brows. "Why is it locked? Open it." Jae blinked and came forth. "Sir John locked it, and it's for your safety." "Ha, safety? What sort of safety? Open it right now. I know you have the key. You opened that for Dr. Sue earlier." Taehyung was getting angry when the other lied in front of him. "Sir, there are wild animals in the forest. You must have heard their growls last night. Please don't make me do it. He will get mad." Taehyung gritted his teeth and started kicking the door with his foot. "Sir, at least let me inform Mr. John Dash. There are no ***n signals. How do you do that? Open it now. I'm not going to the forest. We'll take a little stroll around and be back." The usually soft and tender was full of agony for some reason, and Jae had to give in when he didn't step back. Taking the key harshly from the other's hand, he opened the door and threw the key back on the floor before storming out of the mansion. The outside of the mansion felt sort of weird. The summer sun was still blazing a bit, even when it was around 5 p.m. The leaves were rustling with the wind and the forest seemed peaceful. There was that certain curiosity in his mind that made him walk straight to the tall trees, but as he was about to enter, his feet halted. There are wild animals. I should stay away. Standing at a distance from the boundary of the forest, he contemplated for a little while, but a small shriek left his lips when he found a medium-sized snake near his feet. It was like his fate when he started to run away from the equally fast snake and entered the forest. His gaze kept on looking behind to find the snake still chasing behind. Why are you chasing me? The fallen logs, wood chips, everything was jumped off by his legs in hurry, and he didn't know when he was too deep in the forest. Panting and huffing, he looked back to find the snake going away from him, and finally, he let out a sigh of relief by bending down by taking the support from his knees. Once he was calmed enough, his eyes widened slightly when he noticed his surroundings. Tall trees, very less light on the muddy ground, silence, and a very weird feeling. Gulping a bit, he looked back to find no sight of the entrance means he was lost. That snake. Slapping his own forehead, he gathered a bit of courage and started to walk back from where he came, but the very tangled distribution of trees made him more lost. Now I regret coming here. It was an immense feeling, like another déjà vu once he turned to a specific point and found the place very familiar. Many flashes again reminded him of some horrific incident there. This time a bit clearer, as he could see some different creatures leaping over someone. Stop playing with me. He felt very uneasy when the flashes continued, reminding him of bits of his nightmare. I'm not your slave. The loud voice of another human made him halt again on his steps, and he noticed another thing. The forest was too silent to even hear his own heartbeat in his ears. By now, his mind was pushing him to discover the source of the voice, to be more involved as he was already at the place. Rushing forward to the direction of the voice, he saw something from a distance to halt completely. Too shocked to even let out his breath. 38. Golden Cage Tae. The voice called him, and the said person took a deep breath before turning back to find the source. Jungkook was panting, sweat drops decorating his clean forehead, and a deep frown accompanying that. What are you doing here? Taehyung silently watched as the other came to him and quickly took hold of his shoulders, eyes roaming over his whole body like doing a sort of inspection to find any wound. Are you alright? You are too much sweaty. Did something happen? All the questions were bombarded within seconds, and Taehyung just nodded lightly before letting out a soft smile. I'm fine, let's go back. I forgot the way back and ended up here. Jungkook looked relaxed on that and nodded before taking one hand in his own and soon started to walk back. It didn't take long when they were out of the forest and the mansion was standing tall in front of their view. Now when Taehyung's eyes fell behind the mansion, he found the clear summer sky and just distant trees' canopies. Jae was already waiting for them near the door, and when he finally saw them both coming back, he quickly scurried back inside after sighing in relaxation. The whole time, none of them exchanged a single word, and when they were back, Taehyung silently trudged toward the room. Jungkook watched him going inside with a blank look before turning back to do something. The living room was filled with clattering as the two were eating in complete silence until Taehyung broke it once again. Where do you go for work? A nearby town. I started the new business of marketing and is going well for now. Means we can leave this place sooner? Taehyung quickly retorted back with eyes still focused on the plate. Jungkook took a deep breath. Let's see, I'll do my best to reach that point. After that, they were back in their room, and that night, Taehyung silently laid back in his bed with Jungkook hugging him as usual. The time passed away, and as he expected, the other left him in the deep midnight. That day, he decided to ditch his usual medicines and see if Jungkook would go out at night or not, but to crush his little hopes, the other really did leave. The whole night, he kept on looking out of the window, hearing the growls of the wild animals from the forest till it was around 4 a.m. and he heard the door of the main entrance creaking. The other was back in the room to tiredly lay and cuddle him like he was starved for longer. The way his body melted when it was pressed with Taehyung's gave the latter a sort of deep sensation. Maybe Jungkook loves him beyond boundaries to feel this much contentment with just a hug. Around 2 p.m. on the next day, Dr. Soo left after the regular checkup, and Taehyung was once again left with Jae in the mansion. He patiently waited till Jae locked the main door with great care and rushed back to the kitchen, maybe to hide the key. Taehyung silently followed the other, and saw him hiding the key in the upper corner of the top left cabinet. Jae smiled to himself and turned back only to jump back in horror when he found a knife on his neck, by none other than the soft, innocent and fragile-looking brunette. Sir Dash. Taehyung smirked devilishly, stepped forth, and pressed the knife to leave a small cut on the other's skin. Jae was definitely panicking about the other's behavior, but before he could reach the walkie-talkie from his pants, the other pushed him harshly and he fell on the floor. Wide eyes in utter disbelief filled with glints of horror made Taehyung let out a low chuckle. Should we start? Gliding the knife on the other's skin, he whispered lowly and Jae was frozen, totally frozen. Hours later, Jungkook entered the mansion to find Jae on the floor near the kitchen. A small pool of blood near his head. Jae. The other was out cold and the pool of blood was not so much, but still the other was hurt. Taking his own shirt off, he wrapped it around the other's head and laid him on the couch. Tae? Baby, where are you? With palpitations in his heart, he ran to the room to find no one there. Love? Are you in the bathroom? But to his horror, the other was not there as well. Oh God, Tae. Where are you, love? Licking his lips, he was already out of the room to look around the whole mansion but found no one there. The reality dawned upon him that Taehyung was gone. He ran away. Taehyung was running at full speed on the bumpy, narrow, clean ground, his eyes blurry as he recalled whatever he had done. His trembling limbs were making it difficult to run at greater speed, but he knew he had to. He had to run to escape this whole trap. Flashback. Should we start? Jae tried to get away, but Taehyung made it difficult for him by trapping him in between his limbs. Sir, please. Let me go. What are you doing? You need to take your medicines. I'll bring them, please, Dash. What medicines? I don't need them. You just answer whatever I'm going to ask and you are free to go. Jae licked his lips and after a second, nodded his head. Tell me the truth otherwise. He just pressed the knife to prove his point. Jae frantically nodded his head in response, sweating profusely. Who are you? When did you actually came here and how? Sir, I've told you before. Taehyung again pressed the knife, causing the younger to let out a cry of urgency. Truth, Jae, truth. I'm an engineer. I was passing by the road when a cab driver gave me a lift. Next time, I was in a deserted place and a person was standing there with a mask on. He threatened me to settle this old mansion or else Dash. He gulped thickly before continuing. Or else he would throw me to those things that were standing at a little distance. Taehyung felt his grip loosening on the knife. They aren't human. They have red eyes, long arms. They looked hungry, very hungry, and were trying to get me, but that person stopped them and they did. Taehyung bit his lips harshly. Who was that person? Jae was crying at that point and shook his head in fear, but Taehyung was now well aware of the answers. For how long we've been living here? Jae breathed a bit, to stable his voice before croaking out meekly. 8 months. A bitter chuckle left Taehyung's lips on that. Really? And what did I do in that whole period? Jae looked apologetic to the extent that he couldn't even make eye contact with the brunette. You were not conscious. He kept you in a drug-induced coma for 7 months and then started to feed you with sleeping aids. Taehyung's hands were trembling, not sure of what emotion, anger or hurt. Why is he keeping me here? What sort of benefits will he get? Jae stayed silent again this time, sealing his lips in a thin line. Now, Taehyung was sure the other was not going to say a word more, so he got up to get the key only to be tackled down by the other. Sorry, but you can't go anywhere. He will kill me. Saying that, Jae tried to fight him. Let me go. Jae was persistent and kept on trying to stop the brunette, but in the end, Taehyung ended up pushing the other harshly, which led to the injury on the younger's head. With trembling hands, Taehyung opened the door and rushed out of the golden cage that the other had renewed to keep him caged. The whole forest was giving him chills when everything was now crystal clear. He wasn't sick, he wasn't mental, he was made mental by none other than the mastermind Jungkook. John or Han doesn't matter at this point, cause Jungkook was a devil wrapped in sweet strings that made him fall into his trap. Not once, not twice, but many times. It wasn't very abrupt. He did get the flashes of his memory when he saw that doctor, but he kept silent after being called mentally sick. He knew something was off. The same night, he dreamed of watching Luhan in front of him after being stabbed in the neck. That made him think back about the doctor being injured by Jungkook and those ghouls, but maybe she got healed just like Luhan. and that pieces of her body were really his imagination out of stress. There must be deep scars on her body unlike the small one on Luhan's neck, the reason she kept on dressing fully in the hot weather. The knots in his mind were untying one by one, thanks to his instincts of throwing the so-called medicines that came out as sleeping aids. The reason his memory was clouded because of prolonged and unbalanced exposure. There was a little doubt even after witnessing the odd behavior of Jungkook with something on his neck, but that also vanished the moment he stepped into the forest and found that eerie silence-filled place and the small cabin. It reminded him of everything, the death of poor Hansen and all, the last memory he had before falling in the abyss created by Jungkook. "I hate you, Jungkook." The words rolled out of his mouth like poison. The other went to the extreme extent to keep him near himself, creating a vast trap to let him roam in his own mind and thoughts. Even after running for so long, he couldn't find a way out of the cursed place. It was like he was going in circles around the forest, and his steps halted when he saw the distant walls of the mansion. Wide eyes stared at the place in great confusion. How is it possible? I ran a lot. The failure made him shudder for the second time, because he was really going in circles when he found himself standing at a distance from the mansion. His trembling legs almost collapsed in hopelessness, because it really felt like there is no way out, even when he tried the other path except for the forest, but he wasn't ready to enter there as well. That forest was like another maze that made him this miserable in the first place. A choked sob left his trembling lips when he almost collapsed but didn't, because he was caught by two arms very firmly, warm breaths tickling his skin before a few words entered his disturbed mind. "You can't run away from me, baby." Worse luck. "You can't run away from me, baby." Shuddering at the deep voice and warm breath, Taehyung clenched his teeth tightly, his blood boiling in rage at the tone. "Why can't you let me live in peace?" He wanted to yell and shout at the other, but to his dismay, his voice came out very shaky after running a lot. "Baby dash. Shut up. Don't call me that." Jungkook was taken aback when he was pushed back hard, and the other was again about to run away. "Tae dash," the said male dodged the reaching hand and rushed forward only to bump into a chest that made him stumble back. Taking his gaze up, he found a very pale-looking Jae standing in front of him with a blank look. Suddenly, he felt very guilty for hurting the other and lowered his gaze to find a messy cloth wrapped around the wound. "Love, what's wrong? Please let's go inside. You are too disturbed right now and need to take your medicines." Hearing that, Taehyung felt the rage coming back in his veins. Glaring back at the silver-haired, he let out a scowl. "Medicines? Those aren't medicines. Those are drugs that kept my memories clouded for so long. You made me like this." He pointed towards his head. "This is in so much pain because of your traps. What did I ever do to you to feel this much pain, Jungkook?" Jungkook bit his lips, hands stretched to coax the other in any way, but Taehyung knew better. He slapped that away and showed a threatening finger to him. "Don't touch me as you will, you're too wicked." The older took a deep breath, rubbed his temple in frustration, and lightly smiled. "Love, your mind is really very clouded right now. Baby, please come with me dash." A loud slap echoed and Jae had to keep his head low because that was really bad. Jungkook's head was tilted on the right side, his left cheek getting slightly red after the impact. "You've played enough with me, stop this drama now. I remember everything, each and everything very clearly. How you used me, used my love to make me this much fool. How much you made me suffer, how much you've hurt me." The loud voice boomed in the area, usually soft voice sounding very much filled with anger. His eyes screamed fury, rage, and hate. Jungkook was still standing in the same posture, not even moving a single muscle. "It's not my mind that is clouded, it's your mind that needs some help. You're insane, crazy." Letting out the words, he turned around to try his rotten luck once again. Jae didn't stop him at all, just watched the poor boy stumbling in great haste. The younger's pity-filled gaze met with Jungkook's and he felt a shiver down his spine, causing him to quickly look down. "You told him." Jae bit his lips but shook his head. He remembered it all on his own. Something must have triggered his memories. Gritting his teeth, Jungkook rushed behind the running brunette to get him within a few seconds. "Leave me! Leave me! Let me go!" Avoiding all the thrashing, Jungkook carried the boy and tried to calm him down. "Baby, please. I don't know what you remember, but love, this is our home, your home. I've told you before, I'll manage to leave this please soon. Taehyung thrashed violently in the arms and Jungkook almost got slapped once again but didn't lose the grip. This is not home. This a cage. A golden cage that you've built to keep me caged for all those past months. Jungkook clenched his jaw but leaned over the thrashing male who gulped at the reduced distance. You need to sleep, love. You look so tired after running so long. Taehyung gawked in disbelief. The other was still trying his best to play the role of the most innocent and most caring person on the earth. Changing your and mine appearance won't change the truth, Han Jungkook. I stopped taking your so-called medicines a few days ago and I know it better. What are you? Seething words finally made a blow to the silver-haired mind who closed his eyes, halting in his steps, his lips twitching in pure anger, and when he opened his eyes, Taehyung was a little afraid because those eyes were filled with rage. I did that all for you, for us. That deep and very low tone was enough to make anyone feel intimidated, and Taehyung wasn't different when he stopped thrashing in the hold. But, you have to be very indecent and ungrateful, right, pretty boy? The name made the brunette feel so many feelings at the same time. He loved to hear that name from those bow-shaped lips. He'd feel relaxed and treasured whenever the older would call him, but after knowing the reality, that name felt like a knife dipped in venom and piercing his heart, reminding him of his foolishness for falling for a twisted man. You made me like that, Dr. Jungkook. Jungkook chuckled. A very, very dark chuckle, and Jae kept his head down as he saw the older taking Taehyung back. Taehyung stayed silent for a little while, but his mind started to panic when he saw the other turning back to the forest instead of going to the mansion. Why are you taking me there? Hey, Jungkook remained silent, his face stoic and void of emotion as he speedily walked through the thick vegetation. And soon, both of them were in front of the place from where it all started. Taehyung felt his heartbeat increase to an alarming level when Jungkook made his grip tight and crossed the fence of the cabin. No, not here. Please. Let me go. Jungkook, please. His voice disappeared when a very familiar face popped up from inside the cabin. A cocky smirk on the lips that felt red due to bloodstains, making him feel nauseous. Oh, so we have our delicious back, interesting. Taehyung's lips started wobbling when Jungkook smirked back and almost threw him on the ground. All of my efforts went downhill. What a waste of time and money. Jungkook spat, but his tone sounded full of disappointment. Luhan chuckled and patted the other's shoulder. No worries, you can keep him here then. After all, he had spent a lot of time here before. Taehyung's limbs were shaking violently because now when Luhan was in front of him, it was just reminding him of Hansen's death over and over again, making his mind go hazy. Trees are almost empty now, I wonder what he would eat? Luhan pointed out, laughing afterward, but Jungkook kept his gaze on the cabin, not enjoying the joke. Why are you keeping me here? Taehyung whispered out, mind very restless on the loud laughter of the hybrid. I've told you before many times. I love you and don't want to live without you. Love? Was everything out of love? Because if it was, it can't be called love. You can really love someone other than yourself? You just want to live in this sick place with your sick mind. Jungkook silently absorbed the insults, not minding to react in any way, but Luhan sneered. Aren't you getting very bold? Taehyung ignored that remark from the hybrid and got up from the ground to launch on the silver-haired. What's the point of keeping a shell here when you've already destroyed my heart and brain? Jungkook took his one hand in his own and jerked his body forward, making the distance lesser. I can rebuild it in my own way. Another jerk and Taehyung stumbled forward on the strength. Also, I've always loved the shells, shiny, beautiful, and breakable. Tracing his fingers over the younger's jaw, he breathed out before capturing the pink lips to leave a bite mark after the other protested, leading them to part away. I hate you. You are a monster. All of you are monsters. Beasts. Forgetting what happened the last time on saying the word, Taehyung shouted with all of his energy only to get a harsh tug on his hair. What did you say? Taehyung smirked and took hold of the other's collar before repeating the words again, only to feel immense pain when he was tossed towards the nearby tree. A groan of pain left his bruised lips as he landed back on the ground, but before he could get up, Luhan tackled him back to the ground. Want to kill me? Go ahead, feed till your fill and throw away my body to your fellows till nothing is left behind. Come on. Living in such situations was the least he could desire, and he couldn't escape with all those eyes on him, leaving him with only one choice: to get free of this all. Come on, are you afraid? Jungkook was still standing in the same position, eyes focused on his own hands when Luhan felt hungry at the sight under him. "Are you provoking me, delicious?" Taehyung blinked slowly, nodding his head and laying limply on the ground. Even when his eyes were filled with tears when he found Jungkook doing nothing at all, he wasn't going to die with regret that he didn't try. He always tried, but his fate has something else planned for him. Dying is better than living here. Jungkook clenched his fists when Taehyung said that, loud enough to be heard by him. "My life has been ruined by your king. I've no desire to live without any emotion." How much he wanted to end this death cycle when he get to know about it all. But his luck never let him do it because he, himself, was stuck in the never-ending circle. Luhan let out a hungry growl, getting the attention of the ghouls near the area as they growled back in response. "As you wish." His red eyes went black for a second before he leaned down in a swift move, ready to bite down the pale skin and fill his need. Taehyung just closed his eyes after glancing back at Jungkook, who looked spaced out. "I wish you were not like this. I really loved you from my heart." A small smile formed on his lips on recalling all the good memories the older gave him, and took a deep breath when Luhan dived down to bite him. Maybe that was really the end of his very miserable journey he started months ago. Maybe that was really his fate, to die like a nobody in the depth of the forest, in front of the person he had fallen for at some point. A sad smile formed on his bruised lips. "I've really got the worst luck ever." The end. The painful feeling of being torn apart should have come by now as time was passing and Taehyung kept laying in the same position. When he found that the other wasn't going to feed on him, he opened his eyes only to be struck by the lightning. There stand Jungkook, holding a long metal rod piercing through the heart of the hybrid, the red blood of the latter seeping through the wound, slowly trickling down the metal surface and soaking Taehyung's shirt. "No one is allowed to do that." Through gritted teeth, Jungkook let out the words dangerously before kicking the hybrid on the side because Taehyung was once again left numb at the sight. The body, which was calm a few moments ago, once again started to shake like a dry leaf when the blood started to pool on the ground, now soaking the soil with a greater speed, making the owner gasp for breaths on the view. Jungkook kicked the almost lifeless Luhan once again before marching towards the trembling brunette, whose eyes were stuck on the crimson ground. "Let's go inside." It was like another electric shock and Taehyung came out of his daze. "Let go." Jungkook clenched his fists before yanking the brunette up in a harsh way, and used his other hand to take hold of both cheeks with his almost digging fingers. "Are you still going to run away from me, love? Why can't you understand? He dangerously leaned over Taehyung's face, eyes blazing in pure rage. "Will never let you go away. Then let me die." Jungkook chuckled, deliberately making his fingers dig more into the soft skin as he looked like a maniac. "No can do, pretty boy. I didn't do it all to let you die. I'll keep you here with me, as my prized possession. I've built that little kingdom as I wished for, and now you're my wish." A shiver ran down Taehyung's spine when Jungkook licked his jaw, nose touching his skin very slowly like he was making sure to touch every single spot on his face. It took a second to focus on the words the older just said, and when he did, his eyes widened again. "It was your project?" Jungkook stopped nosing the other's skin when soft whisper-like words tickled his right ear. He let out a breathy chuckle near the other's neck and pecked there before coming at the same eye level. "Of course, I was the mastermind of this whole project. They all were just my pawns, that Dr. Han. I used his resources and did what I always wished for, to rule them. To rule them all." Taehyung's face lost its color when he actually saw the glint of craziness in the eyes that once felt very warm. "But you said every time, everything, every single word." Taehyung remembers it all. Jungkook said that it was Dr. Han who started that project and he managed to form the formula, but now the other was revealing his true colors. Oh, how much Taehyung felt like a fool for falling every time. "Oh, my innocent baby, I've said many lies to you, but even in those lies, I was always true about my feelings for you." "Feelings? You can't have them for anyone, Jungkook. You're making them all suffer with this sort of life. They're not dead nor alive. This is cruel, very cruel. Don't do that to anyone." It was really outrageous to even think about that, but the person standing in front of him did it all without any remorse. "What are you getting out of it all? You are stuck in this hell hole. There is no one to take care of you. There is no one to depend upon. Are you all right with this sort of life? Why are you suffering and making them suffer along with you? Many questions were thrown over the other's face, but Jungkook just kept a blank face on, not minding the way Taehyung was literally shouting at him. It just makes me feel proud. I own them, they can feed once I allowed them, they can stop if I say to. They're literally dancing on my fingertips and that gives me a lot of pleasure, thrill. Taehyung jerked away the hand from his face and fell to his knees in pure disheartenment. Is it really that easy? Destroying lives, hearing the yells and painful screams every night. Is it really that easy? No, it can't be, it can never be for a normal human being. Jungkook sighed when Taehyung fell to the ground with blood-drained face. Now come inside, your face is getting paler. He tried to touch the face again, to which Taehyung pushed him very harshly that he fell back on his, but as he was crouching down. Why can't you just kill me before I kill you? Jungkook chuckled lightly, but soon his laughter was echoing throughout the whole area. Within seconds the whole area got filled with ghouls who were growling, pushing each other so that they can reach forth for their meal, but Jungkook's single gaze made them stop behind the fence. Oh, so now this little innocent pup is going to kill me. The sarcasm was too much, but nothing in front of other grave matters. Baby boy, I'm the one who is controlling this whole area, and a strong grip on Taehyung's hair made him whimper lightly. I'm going to make you obedient, just like them. The remaining amount of mental energy left him when he pondered on the words spoken by the devil in front of him, making him gulp thickly in intense pressure. No, I can't be like them. I will never let it happen. I can't be like these half-dead and be his puppet. He knew he had to do something, he really needs to, but what? It took a few seconds as he kept on looking into those wicked eyes, founding nothing but obsession, lust and desire. He decided what he had to do. I really fell in love with your other side, Hyung. Jungkook's eyes dimmed when tears started to fall like an unstoppable stream from the other's eyes screaming nothing but pain. And I'd have continued loving you if the circumstances were not like this. I'd have loved to see the whole world with you, to stay with you and give you all of myself. Jungkook's smile slowly fell when Taehyung cupped his cheeks with his trembling hands. But thank you for what you've done so far for me. Saying that, he gulped and looked around. When Taehyung noticed they were being surrounded by the ghouls and Luhan wasn't moving anymore after his heart was stabbed, he took hold of the Jungkook's collar. And in the next second he was kissing the other. Jungkook was totally taken aback by the action, not expecting to be kissed by the brunette in such an abrupt way, but a small smile tugged on his lips, anger vanishing like vapors of water under the blazing sun as he responded in the more passionate way. Taehyung's hands roamed over other's hair and neck, and his eyes continued crying, just like his heart. Jungkook, well, he was on cloud 9 because it was after so long when the other was initiating something very intimate and was doing that very passionately. He enjoyed the way those long fingers were tugging his hair softly and caressing over his nape so gently. He smiled, but a gasp left his lips, his eyes widening on the surging new feeling in his body, hands losing grip over other's face when a seething pain rushed through his body. Taehyung pulled back, his face paler when he saw what had happened, and his eyes fell on another presence behind the silver-haired who was gasping in pain before falling to the ground. What dash? The other person smiled sweetly, swaying the heavy log over her shoulder like nothing, her arms now bare and decorated with lots of marks and painful scars, but she seemed very happy. You're too polite sometimes, Taehyung. If you really need to escape, you've to do this. She pointed her finger toward the silver-haired who gave her a glare with his half-opened eyes before fainting on the ground. Taehyung's mind was almost going blank for the nth time. Words stuck in his throat as nothing came out. His shaky pupils fell over the now unconscious Jungkook and the blood near his head. Whipping his gaze quickly to avoid any attack at the moment, he gulped and clenched the item in his hand, the pendant he removed from the other's neck just a moment ago. Even when he was going to do so, he wasn't sure if the plan would work or not, and now when the pendant, or more precisely, the controller, was in his hand, his whole demeanor was losing the calm. Taehyung, that's not the time to space out. Go before he wakes up and stops you again, or worse, make you his puppet just like them. Her tone was filled with venom as she breathed out, that sharp gaze focused on the large horde of ghouls who were now trying to enter the fence slowly. Why? Minha chuckled, shaking her head, but her eyes screamed in pain. He made me like this. I lost everything once I entered his den. He even almost killed me the day you saw me for the first time, but suddenly he injected the same formula in me to heal back, maybe to use me for you. This man is far way twisted than anyone could ever think of. Taehyung's heart was hurting, still hurting just by looking at the unconscious Jungkook, who looked so innocent and perfect like that. He choked on a sob, again clutching the pendant in his hand, but after a brief moment, he took a deep inhale. You need to be quick. Take some wood logs and go to the stream because the border of the forest is still not safe. Also give that to me. Taehyung got up on his shaking legs and gazed down at the pendant in his hand. The gurgles and growls of the ghouls were increasing, like they also felt some sort of change and almost entered the fence. They should die, they can't be alive anymore, but at least can die in peace. Just give me a second. He breathed out before turning back to face the whole horde, his heart feeling lots of pangs as he watched them with pity and deep guilt inside his whole soul. It's for you all. Mumbling that, he took another deep inhale before taking the pendant near his lips, ready for the first command. Kill yourself. Also the last command. Minha frowned when the brunette commanded, his voice a bit shaky. All of the ghouls stopped moving for a second when they were commanded. Kill yourself. The whole horde looked confused, not knowing what to do, and then Taehyung felt defeated. Take your hearts out of your chest. Hearing that, all of them started doing that, clawing their hand over their chest and ripping their own heart out of the skin. The scene was too gross to ever forget about. The whole forest was full of painful growls and screams, and each and everyone was piercing the brunette's heart in the most horrible way ever. He cried, his whole face wet with his tears as he ducked his head down, not able to face the scene he had created. But his intentions were not bad. He just wanted to make them free of the miserable life they were spending. It was also a little effort to stop the death cycle. Minha was too shocked at first but sighed at the end. She felt pity when Taehyung's sobs turned into loud cries with the loud screams of ghouls. Her eyes got filled with tears as well, but she shrugged it off and walked up to the brunette to softly pat his shoulder. You did a good thing, Taehyung. Don't blame yourself for that. Taehyung gritted his teeth, trying to control his cries, and once he did, he wiped his face. Where is Jay? He should come with us. Minha chuckled and patted his head this time, her eyes full of tears by now, making Taehyung feel conflicted. Was that because he killed many ghouls in front of her, as she was a hybrid? Or because she was really pitying his situation? He is doing something important. As if on cue, the younger boy came out of the cabin with something in his hands. Oh! A startlingly low word slipped out of his mouth when he saw the gruesome scene in front of him. A huge pile of dead ghouls with a lot of blood. Their wide-opened eyes looking up at the hidden sky and ground crimson with their blood. Jay, right on time. Take him to the west side and hand him some good logs. Make sure to be back quickly, and if you want, give him some messages for your family. Taehyung was hella confused when 2 sealed envelopes were given to him with a leather jacket to protect them from getting wet. You will find the information where to deliver that. Jay licked his lips and gave a brief hug to the other after Minha did the same. What, are you not coming? Both shook their heads. We don't belong to that world anymore. You see, we are ruined and don't want to end up like him or them. Minha said dismissively, her eyes disgustingly pointed towards Luhan and the dead bodies of ghouls. Jay is a hybrid as well? Taehyung felt like crying once again when Jay brightly smiled, even when his eyes were filled with tears. In the next second, he was dragged away from the cabin to the stream. It must be very fooled of him to still look back at Jungkook, and his heart thrum in pain when he found the older looking at him with half-opened and teary eyes. Make sure to survive, you need to deliver our messages. Okay? Jay jokingly threatened him, but who can laugh when their eyes were leaking their pain? Don't cry, sir. I'm happy that you are able to go away, now go. Live your life and never ever find this place. He was pushed into the stream, a wood log accompanying him, and he took hold of that after coming out of the water. Jay waved his hand, a sad smile on his lips before rushing back. No, stop. The flow of water was fast enough to take him away from the ground. He couldn't stop thinking and sobbing. All the events were too much, but he was still holding up. As if all the previous events were not enough, a loud explosion occurred in the forest, accompanied by many more, setting the major portion on fire. No, what a no. All of his screams just echoed and came back to him because no one was there. No one at all, just his broken cries were tearing apart the silence of the eerie jungle. Maybe this was the end of his miseries. Oh, uncle. Look, someone is there. A small child of about 7 years old, chirped loudly, rushing back to get the attention of his uncle who was trying to catch a fish for the past 3 hours with no luck. Huffing in irritation, he dismissed the boy for the nth time as the little brat was distracting him, causing him to regret to agree his sister for taking him here. Not again, Hyunsu. Uncle, oh, he fell in the water. The said person finally got up when he heard a voice only to find a floating log and lots of ripples near it. Uncle, there is a person. Please help him. The person quickly removed his shirt before diving into the water. Hyunsu was nervously biting his nails when his uncle didn't come out of the water for about a few minutes, but he blew air in relief when finally the other showed up with a boy in his arms. After some struggle, they managed to lay the unconscious boy on the ground before giving him CPR. The brunette coughed a few times before losing consciousness again. He is alive. Let's call an ambulance.